We want to welcome to the stage our last reader for this set, Dickson Lam. Join me in welcoming him.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out on this cold night. Thanks, Peg, for inviting me. So I'm going to read a little bit from my memoir, Paper Sons. And the part I'll be reading from is about growing up in San Francisco. This particular event is about me joining a graffiti crew. In front of a boarded up building on Haight and Fillmore, we were huddled in clusters, waiting for the two leaders of 3F to arrive. They were to decide whether or not Shim would join the tagging crew. He was a goofy dude. He'd smile to himself and make animal noises, the sound perhaps of a dying hyena. It seemed 3F was lowering their standards, and that's why Hollywood had brought me here. If they let Shim join, he'd said, that loser, they gotta let you in. The smell of weed lingered in the air. Night had stuck up on us. The neon sign of a pizza shop had lit up. Headlights cruised by. None of the guys had said anything about me showing up unexpectedly with Hollywood to this meeting for 3F, fresh Fillmore funk. If anybody was Fillmore, it was Hollywood. He tagged Fillmore almost as often as his graffiti name, which actually wasn't Hollywood. That was his nickname. How he got that or what his real name was, I didn't know. We'd only begun hanging out that summer. His graffiti name was Simer, but no one called him by that. What the hell was a Simer? Granted, plenty of guys chose tag for themselves and ended in ER, many of which sounded nonsensical. Sizer, Crimer, Vester, but at least these were based on actual words. It was hard to take Wood seriously as a writer. His style was unrefined, the loop in his R always too low. But he was down to fight, and I don't mean if he was back in the corner. The dude hunted for fools from rival turfs, though he was no bigger than me. He flaunted his set by wearing a custom-designed baseball hat, the kind hardcore cats from the Mo were rocking at that time. Name and your turf, airbrush, and bubble letters dotted with rhinestones. My pager vibrated in my jean pocket. It was my mom. Probably wanted to complain about how I'd missed dinner. Or maybe she wanted to tell me she was staying at her boyfriend's for the weekend and I left some pasta in the fridge. A bus approached. I stuffed my pager back in my pocket. All of us rushed to the curb, pushing each other aside for a better view. Wood's tag sailed by on the window of the bus. Black smoke belched from the exhaust. I stayed running, Wood shouted, as though he scored a goal. He had beady eyes and a rough-looking face, wrinkles you wouldn't think a 16-year-old would have. Why are you here, Timer, the co-leader of 3F said to me. His annoyance was so exaggerated, I assumed he was playing around. I hadn't noticed when he arrived, though he was one of the tallest in our bunch. He wore a Rasta beanie and army fatigues. It's about time my boy ranked getting 3F, Hollywood said, and slapped my chest. I rocked back, the blow harder than it was probably intended. That right? Timer said to me. Sure, why not? I said. Motherfucker, do you want in or not? Timer said. Yeah, I'll hit up 3F. Timer pulled aside the other leader, Psych, who twisted his short dreads and nodded along. I thought I was in. Joining a crew had always been this easy. No hoops or hurdles. We weren't gangs on some blood in, blood out shit. If you were cool with the leader, you were a shoe-in. And I didn't just know the leaders of 3F, I knew all the members gathered this night. These were the guys in my tagging circle. We'd bus hop around the city, take a break at a hilly park, trudge up a bench with a view of the city, and puff pass on a honey-coated blunt. We'd coordinate what we stole at Safeway. One person would get the bread, another the meat, another the cheese, another the sodas. We'd have a picnic at the bus stop. We were always in the same crews, but 3F has seemed off limits. I didn't reside in the Fillmore, so how could I claim fresh Fillmore funk? I couldn't even pronounce the neighborhood correctly, which is to say the way they did, Fillmore. When I would try to say it, it came out Fillmore, as if I had an English teacher stuck in my head. I'd resort to the monosyllabic version, the Mo. But then living in the wrong neighborhood, but more than living in the wrong neighborhood, I lived in North Beach, the housing project near our high school, which had to count for something. What made me most uncomfortable was asking to join 3F, and simultaneously, what made me most want to join was that everyone that I knew in it was black. I had a confusing relationship with blackness. It nurtured me, and to a degree, raised me. The parents of my homies in my public housing project were my second mothers and fathers. It wasn't uncommon for friends to say, Dickson's black. I'd hear this enough that at times I'd forget it wasn't true. I'd refuse watermelon because I didn't want to play out a stereotype. I existed in between. A homeboy, in reference to other Chinese, would say, use the word Chinaman. But immediately afterwards, say to me, no offense, my nigga. I'd never heard anyone state that 3F was intentionally or exclusively a black tagging crew, but it sure seemed like it in a city where the majority of writers were white or Latino. If there was one thing I wanted to respect, it was black unity. It was a year after the Rodney King verdict, and in the aftermath of the riots, I saw answers. I became a Malcolm X groupie, but I was an undercover groupie. I didn't wear an X hat or a shirt with an image of Malcolm. The only Malcolm X paraphernalia I had was a book cover. On the front of it was a quote from Malcolm arguing that history was the most important subject to study. I skipped class after lunch to plow through history books at the main library, books that illuminated a neglected past. Malcolm simplified my life. He gave me do's and don'ts. When a white girl showed interest, I'd ask myself, WWMD. I told my mother, no more Spam. No more cans of Vienna sausage. No more steamed spare ribs. The pig was part rat, part cat, part dog. She decried. What kind of Chinese person doesn't eat pork? Who's telling you this garbage? Well, Malcolm said that stuck with me the most was that my father was not my father. Just because you made them, that don't mean you're a father, he said.
Wow.
Anybody can make a baby, but anybody can't take care of them. Malcolm believed black folks needed their own space, and I agreed. I had never pushed to join 3F. More than anything, I didn't want to come off like a wannabe, or worse, be rejected as one. Honorary status was bestowed, not begged for. To the park, Timer announced. He lighted up a beady and crossed in the middle of the block with Psych. Come on, Rank, Hollywood nudged me. Shim flicked Clue's ear and ran across the street, unconcerned that we hadn't received an answer. We rounded the corner toward a cul-de-sac of Victorian homes. The entrance to DeBose Park sat at the end, wide steps breaking up a stone retaining wall. Past the steps, an open patch of grass met us under a blue-black sky. The park was empty, as though it had been reserved just for us. Time to slapbox, Syke said, ambling around the grass. If y'all want to get in the tray, Timer said, you gotta know how to chuck some. For 3F, writing took a backseat to throwing down. In an article about graffiti in San Francisco, dated the year of that summer, the author, a freelance journalist, who would later become an editor with Wired magazine, concludes, 3F is one of the most notorious tagging crews in the city, known by almost every graffiti writer as disrespectful of the art and violent. The article begins with an anecdote about 4 graffiti artists painting a mural inside a tunnel. They're confronted by 3 teenagers who they believe might be from 3F. How about you give us your paint, one of the teenagers demands. No fight ensues, but the graffiti artists leave, the mural incomplete. The anecdote sets up the main subject of the article, the tension between taggers and graffiti artists. The graph artists interviewed don't deride us for our lack of artistic talent. They don't call our tags scribbles. They saw us as part of their graffiti family, one with an established hierarchy based on artistic skill. Their beef, we didn't respect them. They spent hours, sometimes days, painting on a wall intricately designed figures, words with 3 dimensions, only to discover when they returned that their work had been defaced by tags. These kids have lost their roots, an OG graph artist says. Maybe we had. Not because we sullied their fresh murals. That was a minority of taggers. The rest of us were in awe of them. Graph artists with a better looking sibling. The one was more talent. They made their way into galleries, books, forever photographed, the darlings of the family. We were the runaways, several hundred strong, duking it out for supremacy on the city bus, our home, a mobile battlefield. Most of us had never heard of the older graffiti artists mentioned in the article. We didn't write to connect to a past. We wrote to break from it. Thanks.